It's how we adapt and overcome every situation that is key. Because guess what? 17 years in business, it wasn't perfect. It wasn't all rainbows. We never planned on manufacturing anything. One of the local hospitals said, listen, is there any way you can get face shields faster? It took 6 of us to do the work of an army.
I know people usually get bored when they talk to me. I don't blame you.
If you're going to do something, why be second at it? Why not always work to set the bar?
She is definitely smarter than you.
See, all day long. The one thing that my wife and I stood for from the beginning was right out the gate, treat people how you want to be treated. 1, 2, produce a quality product. 3, we can all make mistakes. So if we make a mistake, we step up, we honor it. That's why, because we don't follow the trends, we don't follow what other people are doing. We create our own rules as to how we want our company to run and how we want our customers treated. So the biggest thing I try to teach our staff, no matter if they're experienced or not experienced, is listen, we're only as good as our last order. We can do 100 orders for you. All it takes one to do a bad job and turn you away. That's all it takes.
So now does your daughter have an interest in the business based on the fact that there's graphics design to me is an art form, right?
Oh yeah, it is. It's funny because with both of my kids, they've both worked in the business off and on since they were younger. Right. If we need help, they'll come in and help, or if they're looking to make a little bit of extra money, they know, come in, put some work in, you'll earn a paycheck. Right. I don't think she's dead set on it by any means. I think it's gonna be one of those things. She has to see how her career pans out with going to college and what happens. But it's not a goal of ours to have either of our kids take it over. Right. Because my wife and I are so passionate about what we do. Our biggest fear is, if our kids do, and want to take it over, are we ever going to step back then?
Right.
You know what I mean? But if they were serious about it, we would invest the time and the resources to educate them. I mean, getting them exposed to business culture allows them to see all sides of that platform, and then you take that same platform and you apply it to life.
Right. And you guys do a lot of retail out of the store?
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So hats off to you, man. Mike, Howard took me through their shop, and you can see the passion from the minute you walk in the door. Everything, the amount of detail, the amount of different variety of different products that you have, and then the back, everything's painted the right way, everything's clean, everything's has had some thought. You see a lot of different businesses. I have, at least throughout the years. Yeah. I was in the janitorial industry for years, so I was in and out of every different kind of business you can think of, kind of in the bowels of them, in their office space, in their warehouse space, in their bathrooms. Yeah. That's no pun intended with the bowel part, but a lot of people don't take that level of pride in their business, so I give you a lot of credit for your image is very important. Even the wrap on the wall behind you is definitely a cool item.
Oh yeah, I mean, here, I'll show you here. Like, that's my wife's side of the office. She got one above hers too, so.
Yeah. I love it. Were you an artist? What got you, what got you into this business? What was your start?
Well, yeah, I mean, actually, it starts all the way back to my childhood of, I always drew when I was younger. When I got a little bit older, I ended up in the House Good Shepherd from when I was 11 to I was 18. So, whenever I was down, out, whatever, I would just turn to drawing. That was my favorite. As I got older, went to school for graphic design. My goal was always to have a business as a hobby. My daughter, when we started the business, she ended up being diagnosed with a very rare disease. And she's only one, at the time, she was only one of 3 in New York State with this disease, which has 0 cure. So we really had to, put life in perspective and like, all right, is this business thing going to really work? What's the advantages? So, basically, one thing led to another. I don't, if my daughter was never diagnosed, there's times where I look at him like, would I have pushed it? Would I have taken the courage to push? From that point, my wife and I sat down and said, how are we going to move forward with this? How are we going to be able to take care of our daughter, be there for her, because she was there for 2 weeks straight. We didn't leave her there by herself. So we took turns every day, staying the whole day and whole night with her. Right. So we pursued the business as a team.
Yeah.
My heart goes out knowing that 16 years ago, your little girl who was about to graduate from high school early was on her, I don't want to say deathbed, but I mean, the prognosis was So God bless.
All we know is we have to make sure she has health insurance at all times, and make sure that she's covered and protected. So,
well, good. I'm glad she's doing well.
Thank you.
Man, that gives you a different perspective when you hear someone's story like that. You take things for granted every day.
Oh yeah.
Your kids are healthy and everything's normal. You just go about life, and sometimes it's easy to bitch and complain about.
Oh yeah.
And then you hear someone's story that really has something going on, and it puts things in perspective. So I appreciate you sharing that. So
I appreciate it.
So Mike, I want to share a funny story about Howard. And Howard, I'll kind of give you my background. I'm big. Networking is kind of like it's my art form, right? It's how I've always built the business, is reaching out to people and getting a coffee with them, getting a lunch with them. It's actually how Mike and I really began a friendship, was just from networking and seeing how we could help each other grow our businesses. And so Mike, I saw Howard on LinkedIn a lot. He was really gaining traction in terms of just always posting good stuff. Looked like they were on the move. I wanted to develop the Utica market with my role at a REIT. And I reached out to him in a message on LinkedIn and just said, hey, would you like to get together and do some networking sometime? And his response was perfect. He's like, I don't have time. And I was just like, at first I was like, man, that kind of took the wind out of my sails. But then, now, learn a little bit more about you and see what you have going on, seeing your operation, walking through all the different varieties of services that you guys have going on there. And then just hearing the dialogue a little bit of what, the volume of business, that you were doing during the COVID thing. Everybody else was digging and scratching for business, and you guys sound like you guys were really capitalizing on that. So I love the response. It was candid. It was honest. It set me straight for a minute.
I love talking to people about trying to maintain your production underneath the new guidelines. So you hear about 17 or 18 people, and you're obviously producing product. Were you shut down at one point, and if so, for how long? And then how do you ramp back up, and how inefficient do you think you were as a result of now being open? I'm guessing you found some ways to become more efficient. You can kind of speak to that. That's the stuff that gets me excited.
The average business in our line of work before all this was lucky if it grew by 0 to 5% a year. We've been in business 17 years. We've always grown by an average of 15% a year. When you break out all of our numbers and averaged it out, and it contributes to always focusing on the customer, and customer service and a quality product. You have those three things, and you stand behind your product and you get it done on time, you consistently grow. So fast forward to this year, my wife and I were out in Denver with business meeting with 54 manufacturers one-on-one for a private event. So we're out in Denver, and all the manufacturers are getting phone calls for face masks, hand sanitizers. We're out there. None of us has ever seen anything like it. We're like, what is going on back home and all over the world? So when we got back, my wife's like, listen, we really need to, because she does all of our numbers, our book work and all that, and paying the bills and other stuff. So, me, I'm, Mr. Optimistic. Nothing can hold me back mentally. I'm just like, we're fine. Don't worry about it. And a week goes by, sales and everything start doing this, and we're not used to seeing this. We get to the middle of the following week, not so good. It's going from $3,000 down to 0, and then next 2 days 0. So then we're like, all right, I go to her, I said, you're right, let's try to hold out, another few days and see what happens. I don't want to let anyone go or lay anyone off prematurely. And we went from being 20 full-time staff to 6, and within 3 hours. I was just gave him a heart-to-heart, and I told him, like, listen, we have to save this company, and if we do this now, we save all of our jobs, not end this company, and we're not at risk. It crushed my wife and I to have that, to have that talk and make those decisions. I mean, I think we probably cried and were teared up for 2 days straight. I started making phone calls, started getting phone calls, and started researching what people actually needed. Once we had a grasp of what people needed, a manager. So we kept our top 6 people that can move with the workflow. We don't just put people in positions and that's all they know. We actually cross-train several of our employees to understand different processes. So that way, if this department is slow, we send them help. They're not by themselves, just stuck. But once we got traction of knowing, 1, what people needed, 2, where we could get it from, then my wife and I started working on pricing and building an online store together, because the county was reaching out to us, the state was reaching out to us, and our local area was reaching out to us by way of hospitals and all that, saying, hey, you have access to this stuff. One of the local hospitals said, listen, is there any way you can get face shields faster? But then we started researching face shields and what they actually needed and consisted of. My wife goes out back and says, we can make this better. She took a pair of scrap shorts we had from a project, from a job. She ripped the elastic out of them and said, we can use this. And I'm like, so she literally pulls out hand stitching of these shorts, rips the elastic out of it. And next thing I know, we're producing face shields and we're getting orders with, for face shields. We were able to source all USA made materials to put them together. And I'd say 95% of the time, all the materials we were able to source from New York State, from different companies to purchase them. So we kept other businesses open because now they were deemed essential to supply us. Once we got everything going, we bought 2 machines and we were able to help a manufacturer of a company that made the machine we needed stay open because we needed supplies from them faster.
Wow. And you know what's amazing? It's only been 100 days. You did all this. It's been like 100 days.
Just so you know, everything that I just told you, we did in under a week. The 14 staff we laid off, they were back to work within a week and a half. You want to talk about impressive? You bring back your staff and you tell them before they're walking through the door, listen, I have work for you, but it's not designing, it's not screen printing, it's not embroidering, it's making and assembling face shields. Not one of them complained about it. And they produced 50,000 face shields in a month and a half by hand.
We hear a lot of folks who are having trouble getting employees, not necessarily to come back, but just employees, because it's pretty easy to take advantage of the extra $600 a week right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, for you to have all those folks coming back and willing to do a whole different role, and likely not necessarily something they're comfortable doing or know how to do, for them to all come back, that says a lot about you and Amanda.
I appreciate it. I mean, the biggest thing is, the one thing that my wife and I stood for from the beginning was, right out the gate, treat people how you want to be treated. 1, 2, produce a quality product. 3, we can all make mistakes. So if we make a mistake, we step up, we honor it. So the biggest thing I try to teach our staff, no matter if they're experienced or not experienced, is listen, we're only as good as our last order. We can do 100 orders for you. All it takes one to do a bad job and turn you away. That's all it takes.
So I got a question for you. So our first, after you blew me off for networking, right? Our next conversation was I
did it to protect you.
I appreciate that. Now I understand. So the second or third call, it was during all this going on too, and I think that a lot of people are a lot more vulnerable and more willing to talk about their personal lives. But 10 or 15 minutes into our call, you talked about the fact, and you mentioned it earlier in the call as well, that you had been raised a lot in the House of Good Shepherds. How do you feel your childhood plays into what you do and how you do it within your business, Howard?
150%. It's my whole life. The House of Good Shepherd was a great place for me to be in, whether I wanted to be in there or had to be in there, whatever the case was, right? But I learned from early on in life to take negatives and make them positives. More often than not, most people look at a negative and they just dwell on it. And it's just it's natural in society. Well, this is happening to me, this is happening, da 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 da. And it's like, well, wait a minute, all right, those 3 things suck, but you got this one great thing over here that you're not acknowledging and not taking positive advantage of. Why not? So being raised in the House of Good Shepherd, I had a lot of advantages. The disadvantage was I wasn't around family. That sucks. It really does. I'll never tell you that's a good moment in my life. But on the flip side, I got to be raised with a lot of different kids from a lot of different backgrounds and a lot of different personalities, and got to appreciate the positive things that came along, one after another. I was raised with and around these workers that had different backgrounds. So I got to learn about, how college affected them. When they were having a down point in their life, how did they overturn it? How did they improve from it? Or did they or didn't they? So I got to be a student of several different people of all walks and forms of life, and got to appreciate the good and the bad around me much quicker and earlier on in life. So my drive for success, and I never think of myself as really as a successful person, because I don't think I've hit 1/10 of the goals that I think I should be at by now, but I'm working toward them. the biggest thing is just making all those negatives positives and pushing forward. Every time someone doubts you, whether it's say a staff member or say a customer or a family member, whoever it is, right? What's the benefit of you allowing them to hold you back mentally? What's that gain for you? Or say something breaks down around you, right? Say something breaks down in your apartment, your house, your vehicle. Is it going to ruin your life, or do you just get it fixed and move on?
Optimism's a powerful method.
I agree. But I had a lot of great teachers. I really did. I had a lot of great friends growing up in different family settings of their families that I grew up around. I mean, I was joking around. I said, I'm blessed. And she goes, well, what do you mean? I said, I have like 45 mothers. And what that means is I have so many people that I know that their mothers took me in as another one of their children. And so I can go to multiple different homes and hang out and have dinner and eat very good. But, I just met a lot of great people along the way, so for me, I mean, I had a lot of great, Dwayne Eisenberg, from MV, Ronald LaBuzz, Godlewski. I mean, there were so many college teachers that I had that took me under their wing, and they didn't coddle me. The people that I hung around with, they smacked me in the face with hard truth. So if I did whine about something, they broke it down for me like a three-piece suit and said, suck it up and move on. And this is how we go about it for each other.
Hey, what product or was there an order? Was there something? What gave you the nerve to say, you know what, I'm going to start A&P?
So once I realized I could take my artwork and apply it to a product, I just had to find the sources to do so. So we started out with sublimation, and then long story short, A&P was born, I should say, and one thing led to another.
Is there any one thing that you do outside of work that keeps you stimulated mentally or just drives you from your heart?
I'm very passionate. I'm very passionate about my community, what's going on in it. I'm big on trying to help our school district. I'm big on trying to help people that can't help themselves. We just get into a lot of different things. Make-A-Wish. We help out with the local chamber. We kind of just mold ourselves to our community, I guess, is the best way to say it.
So, Mike, just a sample again. Not that you haven't already heard a bunch of them, but I was talking to Howard the other day, and he was, I don't know, what are you doing for the weekend or whatever? He goes, I got building a deck, and tell the story, Howard.
Yeah. So basically, my biological father, I went over to visit him. After there, I went to my grandparents who are deceased, their neighbor, and just checked on them because I know they're up there in the age between 70s and 80s. And then on my way out, and I'm looking at their deck, and I'm like, what's going on with your deck? It looks like you can't step on it. I talked to my wife. I said, would you mind if I invested in buying the materials and we build them a new deck? And she's like, do whatever you want to do. You're going to do it anyways. But this Thursday, we're going up to actually rip out the old deck and install the new one, and they still don't know yet. So
that's awesome.
I'll take before and after pictures for you guys.
Yeah.
Wow.
But these people.
I'll be honest with you, Howard. Today was not my best day. It just one of those days where I wasn't as positive as I probably should have been or could have been. Mm-hmm. This is why I like these conversations. Sometimes it takes just having a conversation with somebody else who looks at the world a little differently or looks at it in a way that you should be looking at it more often. It's inspiring. So it lifted my spirits if no one else's. So.
Yeah, thanks.
I really appreciate you taking this great. This is why conversations like this need to happen. People need to hear other people's perspectives because the tagline I use a lot, and I didn't mean it to be this way, but we're trying to get people to share their stories to inspire other people while they're writing their own. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they might be in a chapter that sucks.
Yeah.
And hearing a chapter of someone else's life that sucked that then got better. Yeah. Might paint a picture of hope for them and just really, it's really good stuff. So I really appreciate your time.
I think what you guys are doing is, it's out of the box. I think people have tried it in the past, but they haven't really succeeded with it yet. They try to do bits and pieces to do what you guys are doing now. And it's funny because what you guys are doing is what we naturally do already. Like we've always had our social media presence. And what it was known for was taking our customers and promoting them to our other customers, and it creates this triangle. Like it's not benefiting and it's not one dimensional. It benefits all of us working together. Because if I do good business, you do good business, and we promote someone that does good business, well, guess what? There's less error, there's less risk, and we all profit from it as a team.
Right.
So
and the region gets stronger.
Exactly. And that's the key that people don't realize. We're all succeeding and growing at different levels depending on what our goals are.
Yeah, a mentor of mine used to use the expression a lot: 1 and 1 makes 3.
That's exactly it.
Yeah, no. So, well, listen, you've spent over an hour with us, and we know how valuable your time is, and we really cherish that.
I don't have time for this. Sorry.
Yeah, well, I knew I'd get you somehow, somewhere. I knew I'd get you. So, and this is networking, by the way.
Yes.
But
I'm super impressed for a young couple in their 20s with babies, taking the leaving corporate America and starting your own gig, and here you are 17 years later. My hat's off to you.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah,
So I'm gonna hold you to the next event we have. I'm gonna give you enough notice. I'd like to see you in person.
All right.
And have you make some more of those 1 and 1 make 3. None of that I'm too busy shit.
I'm married. That counts.
Well, I want
No,
like
Amanda comes with you.
Yeah, next time we should have her share a screen because
we can definitely do that.
Get the commentator voice from the side. I want to see her face when she tells you you're full of shit.
That happens more often than you think.
I understand. I can relate to it. So, listen, we'll give you back some time in your day. Really appreciate you taking the time. Wish you the best of luck, and we'll be in touch soon.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.